So, Aya, I'm here today talking to Deborah. Deborah and I have not met before. She's reached out as a survivor that wants to get her voice heard. So, I'm going to let her introduce herself. Unfortunately, we've not been able to get the visual recording today, but we're going to hopefully do another one in the next couple of weeks or so, because I think that it's important that we put a face to a name and a story. And I think that Deborah's absolutely fine with that. I think she wants to get her experiences out there and exposed. So, do you want to just start by introducing yourself, Deborah, and tell everybody who you are and what your experiences have been?
Yes, I will do. My name's Deborah. I'm in my 60s now. I was married to my daughter's dad for a few years, and then I became a single parent. Our marriage split up. I was on my own for quite a long time. It was about 7, 8 years maybe. And then through a relative, I met this man, and he was just like unbelievable. He was just so attentive, wanting to see me, always arranging to go out, always fetching me gifts. And because I've been on my own for such a long time as a single parent, I think I was just missing that attention, and it just was so flattering.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I think a lot of women would relate to that.
yeah, it's so easy when only things you've got in your life is your child and your job, and then all of a sudden
Yeah,
this man who seems absolutely
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And exactly the same happened with me, to be honest with you, Deb. And
yeah,
um, and that is the classic love bombing, isn't it?
it is, yeah. Which I didn't realise at the time. I just thought, to be honest, I thought it
No,
was genuine, but it isn't genuine at all. Not at all.
yeah,
And every time he saw me, he brought me something. He was really, really good to my child. Um, and then it was a case of within a few months, it was, let's get engaged. And I'm thinking, oh, this is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I'm going to have a nice settled home life. I'm going to be in a relationship again, and everything seemed fine. He
yeah.
got children to a former marriage. He got 3 children, and they
Hmm.
all seemed to get on absolutely fine, except one of the children weren't quite struck with me. I don't think because they're a mum more than anything, which I just thought she's supposed to feel like that. The thing is,
Hmm.
as well, my daughter didn't have any contact with her own father. He just disappeared off the face of the earth, to be honest with you. So she was looking forward to that aspect as everything. So we did get engaged. Um,
Yeah.
Everything was absolutely fine. Then in the December, just after we got engaged, uh, my dad was really ill, got taken into hospital. He'd had a heart attack, and we'd been going to see him. And this particular night, the Friday, um, we'd as we'd come out of hospital, because he'd come to pick me up because I don't drive. Is there just me and him in car, and he says, "Come on, let's go for a drink. I bet you need it." So I was quite happy to do that, and we went for a drink. And anyway, I was just sat while he were at bar, and I was just looking at these really, really old men. They were in their 80s. Stood at bar, and I was looking at them front back, and I was thinking things like, I wonder, even though my dad were in his 60s, I wonder if I'll ever see my dad like that. Stood at a bar again, out with my mum and what have you. And I
Mm,
just happened to look
yeah.
across, and I saw behind bar there were a mirror, and he were looking at mirrors. He were waiting to get served, and I thought, "What are you looking at me like that for?" And when he came back, he just said, "I saw you looking at them men." And I went to reply like I've just said, and he goes, "What is it with you? You just can't stop looking at men." And I said, "No, but look at age of him. I was just thinking, maybe my dad will be able to do that again." And he was just really, really nasty. And I thought, there's no need to be like this at all. No, no need. And I just thought, probably had a bad day at work and all that. And I thought, looking at me, what's he talking about? Anyway, then my dad sadly passed away the day after. It was really, really good
I'm
with
sorry.
me and my daughter and my mum, really helpful and everything. And then at Christmas, I'd arranged before all this happened for him and his children to come for Christmas dinner. Um, and then I said to him, because my dad had died in December, I'd prefer not to do that. I want to spend Christmas with my mum. We're not really in
Mm.
Christmas mood, but if you don't cook a dinner for my children, they're not going to get anything because the mum has booked to go out, and and she can't change that now. And it was awful. The day was absolutely awful because I thought, well, why don't you just go and cook or go to your mum's? But and then
Mm.
just before as my mum had gone home, he turned around and said, I hope we're not going to have another Christmas like this. I like Christmas. And I'm thinking, well, this person is changing. Then all of a sudden he go back to normal, and I just kept putting it down to him having a bad day. Anyway,
Mm.
5 months later, we everything was absolutely fine. Nothing was ever said. We got married. Everything was absolutely great, and I moved from Barnsley over to Sheffield because he got a house, and he were going to get it extended. His eldest son lived with him. He'd decided to move from his mum's, and going to extend this house, and everything was fine. Anyway, that didn't come about, so he says we're going to have to move and get one with a bigger, more bedrooms. So we moved back to Barnsley, sold his property, moved back to Barnsley.
Mm.
And I noticed then he'd never did anything in the house. To be honest with you, I can hand on heart say he never made me a cup of tea, and all the time I met him. He used to say things like, I thought your daughter would be really, really want to help her mum and help you do this and help you do the washing, help you do the ironing. And I'd say, well, why should you? Your son's not. Why should my daughter? It's just because she's not female. And he'd go, well, I just thought it would be
Mm.
nice if she helped you in the kitchen. And, even when we moved house, he didn't pack a box up, he didn't unpack a box. And I were working. And I'd had to go full time anyway, to get this mortgage for this house because I'd gone from part to full time. So I were really
Yeah.
struggling. And then towards the end of the year, everything had been okay. We'd met new people and met new friends from either side. Everything was great. And he went and picked his daughter and sons up, and he disappeared upstairs with his daughter. And I thought, oh, where's he gone? Well, one of his sons he's 5 years older than my daughter. His other son is the same age, and then this daughter was 7. And anyway, so she was like 4 years younger. So when he came back downstairs, I thought, what's going off there? But I let it all pass. Went to bed, and I thought, they're gone home and what have you. So next day, I'd got a driving lesson, so I'd finished work early, and I was getting something to eat at lunchtime. I was butchering some bread, and he came in to have lunch with me before he went back to work because he got his own business. And I says, oh, by the way, um, what were all that about taking her upstairs? And he goes, well, she got a good report at school, and I wanted to, reward her, so I gave her some money. And I goes, yeah, but what about your son and my daughter? They've got good reports. Why don't they get anything? And I just carried with me back to him buttering the bread, and he got hold of the back of my head and he rammed my face into the plate where the butter was, and he started rubbing my head into the butter, and I was trying to get my head up to try and protect myself. And the more I tried to get up, he was pushing me back down, and I could feel like top layer of my skin coming off, because even though it was on butter and bread, it was going through to the plate. Anyway, I managed to get myself up a little bit, and I was like trying to push him away from me. And as I tried to walk away, he grabbed the back of my neck and did it again, really a lot harder than he did the first time. And I just couldn't believe what were happening. I were in shock. I were fighting, but I were in shock. I couldn't believe, because he was a very strong person, and quite hefty built. And I'm thinking, where's this person? I've never known anything like this. Anyway, I managed to
Mm.
shake myself free, and as I'm leaving the room, he came behind me and kicked me with the flat of his foot into my back, and I fell to the floor. I ran upstairs, locked the bathroom door, got in the shower because I do suffer with eczema, and my skin on my face were raw, well, like I'd been burnt. And I managed to get in the shower, and then I just got all, like my handbag and my purse and my phone. And I went down to my mum's and rang my daughter and said, "Don't go back to the house, come down to your grand's. As you leave school," I texted her. So stayed down at my mum's. She had a look and at me back, and she says, "We'll get mirror and I'll show you." And she was so upset, my mum, because it were never seen anything like that before, and my face were red raw out and what have you. And she says, "What you going to do about it?" And I says, "Well, what can I do?" And the thing is, where I worked, government organisation, everybody would have known. And I think that's what he relied on, because he knew I would never report it. I wouldn't want the shame. So me and my daughter went home. He didn't speak to me for 3 days. And I said, "Look, let's talk about what's happened, what's going on." And it was like it had never happened. He never said sorry or anything. And then we'd arranged to go round to his friends on one of the nights. So it were a weekend. And I said, "I'm not going." And he goes, "Why?" And I says, "I can't go looking like this." And he goes, "Like what?" And I showed him the bruises all across my neck, part of my chest, back of my neck. And I showed him my back, and he goes, "Where have they come from?" And it was like he'd never even cottoned on to what he'd done. And I thought,
And
sorry,
how long had you been married at that point?
just coming up to 2 years. So I just, it was then, he kept saying, "I did what?" And I go, "So and so, so and so." And I went all through it, and he goes, "Well, you gave as good as you got." But there were never no sorry, there were no guilt or anything for what he'd done. And my
No.
confidence then hit the floor. I hardly spoke at work. I know I didn't, because I was terrified and somebody noticing marks on me. I covered
Mhm.
up. I didn't want my daughter to see them. She didn't know that he'd hit me. She just thought we'd had an argument, because she was too
Yeah.
young. She were only 12. Anyway,
Yeah.
things started then where it just escalated, where I weren't allowed to look at another man in the eyes. If we went anywhere, I had to keep my eyes down. If I so much as looked up a little bit, he'd accuse me when we got outside that, "Oh, you're fancying him now, are you? You're fancying him, whatever."
Mhm.
When I came home from work, I used to like to get in the shower, wash my hair. When I was washing my hair, I'd just get a shower, come down and start getting tea ready, seeing if I did anything. And he stopped me from doing that, because he said the reason I was doing that is because I'd had sex with somebody at work and I was just washing my body. So he wouldn't let me get a shower without him having a good look. If I got a tear in my tights, like you do sometimes, it said
Mhm.
that it had been a man's hand that had been on me. So I just didn't talk to anybody unless they were female. Um, so like I say, it got to the stage where I was really, really no confidence. Not that I thought I deserved it, but I thought, am I flirty? Am I this? And I'm not. Never have been, never will be. And this house got too
But
small
even
for
if,
us.
but do you know what? But do you know what, Deborah? The thing is, even if you were flirty, that doesn't give him the reason or any excuse to behave the way that he did.
No, 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 it didn't.
Everybody, sometimes some people do have that. It's not necessarily flirty; it's friendly,
Mm. Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
You,
it
you
is. Yeah.
know, and the thing is that there are certain men that perceive it as though you are, being flirty or,
Mm,
you know, and that's not the case at all. Even, you should still be able to. This is what we need to be able to speak out about, because you should be able to speak to anybody you want.
mm.
And that's coercive control, isn't it? At its
It
best,
is. Yeah,
where you shouldn't be even looking at anybody, and then you're doubting
yeah,
yourself,
yeah.
which is the gaslighting side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a problem, gynecological problem. I'd got ovarian cysts, and he came with me for the results. And I'd been so low, worrying about what were going to happen. And I came out smiling, and he didn't smile back. And as we were walking to the car, he says, "Was it a male doctor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You enjoyed that examination, didn't you? You can tell with your face." And I was just elated because I got the all clear. And he just
Mm.
wouldn't understand. He says, "No, you just wanted that man to touch you, didn't you? You enjoyed every minute, I can tell." Because she's smiling. I'm smiling because I'm happy. A couple of times he tried to push me out at car, not that particular time, but if he thought I'd looked at anybody, he'd stop the car and he'd try pushing me out. And the more I tried to hang on, I nearly ended up laid on the floor because I were embarrassed, because it were like in town where people were walking past. One time he did do it, and I went to get out in the car, and it was on an evening because I'd said something he didn't like, or I'd done something he didn't like. And he tried to push me out of the car, and I thought, well, I'm just going to walk home. And I got out of the car, and as I'm getting out, he dragged me with my hair and pulled me back into the car and said, "That's it, you were going to go, weren't you? You were going to go." And it was like, I wanted to say, but I'm doing as I'm told. And looking back now, I can't believe that was me. I really can't.
I know, I know, I know, and it's interesting that you said at the beginning when we first started talking that you didn't want to tell anybody because you felt ashamed,
Mm,
and this is where there are many women that feel like that, and
yeah.
it's not their shame to carry.
Mm,
They've done. They're not the ones that's done anything wrong, and I think this is these podcasts are a way that hopefully many women
mm,
can sort of listen to, and if it is happening to them, that it will hopefully give them some courage to
yeah.
realize what is actually happening,
Mm,
because I think it's a big thing when you know that it's not right, but a lot of time, a lot of women need that validation, don't they?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's only been the last couple of years, even though we've been divorced many years, where somebody I haven't seen for a long time and say, "Oh, I didn't realise you were divorced. What happened?" And I used to say things like, "Oh, it just didn't work out." And then about 6 months ago, I just turned around and said, "Because of domestic violence." And you know, it felt so
Yeah.
good. It really felt good,
Yeah,
because it was like, I'm facing it now. I'm not scared of you. No way am I
yeah,
scared of you. You know, you can do what you want now. Try what you want. I'm away from you. You
yeah,
know where I live. I know you know where I live. But I'm
mm,
not frightened to say this is what sort of person you are. You know, and
yeah,
I don't know why I know why I didn't report it, but I don't know why I didn't tell people. But
yeah. I,
when at last instance,
I
as he
think,
did, it just that was the end of it. The last time he hit me, I just couldn't do it anymore. And we'd moved into yet another new house, but this were a new one. And he'd been, my daughter were in doing something at school at evening. She was older then. She was 15, 16 nearly. And he'd gone to pick his daughter up. And then they saw my daughter running because she'd missed the bus to go back to school. And this were about 6:30 on an autumn evening. And he turned the car back round to go past her and pip on and wave, and then turned round and brought his daughter back to our house. Just so my daughter knew that that's all she were, and they were laughing at her, and she were upset. And when I mentioned it, because I don't think he thought I'd dare, but I did, he says, all your daughter deserves is a roof over her head. We never took her on holiday without his children being there. We never went on day trips without his children. It were always without her, because he says, I don't want to upset my children. To be honest with you, I used to cream money off from my wages, so my daughter at least could have decent clothing, or my mum would buy them for me, and I'd pay my mum back at so much a week, without him knowing. And then
and how long were you with him altogether, Deborah?
5 years, 5 years, and then
5.
yes, 5 years marriage, and a year before that. And then he'd gone to pick his son up to come over, and I just happened to be in the kitchen, and I just turned around, and I was so angry, and I goes, "Why is it your children can have their seat in the car but my daughter's to catch buses, and he just attacked me so badly. He were banging my head against walls, banging my head against a cooker. I were fighting him back, and then he started like putting his fingers round my mouth and pulling my mouth out for some reason. And his watch caught my nose, and my nose was just bleeding. And we got a dog at time, and the dog was howling because poor thing didn't know what to do. And anyway, when I pulled back and I saw blood on, running down, and he goes, "That had better be your blood." And I thought, he's going to end up killing me. He really is.
And did you not ever report any of this?
Never. Only to my solicitor when we got divorced.
And what did your solicitor do?
I just said is that, well, what happened where he tried to divorce me because I left him. I went to stay at my mum's, and he was threatening that he were going to take all the money. And because I'd come from a council house and he got his own home, I hadn't much savings. I thought, where am I going to live? Just where am I going to live? And I didn't go until I noticed that he was starting to take a shine to our next door neighbour. And that were my excuse to go, because I thought, he'll love it telling people, oh, she left me because, me and whoever was started to see each other. But I didn't take it laying down. I went and banged on a door and asked her what she was doing with my husband. She denied it. I just wanted her to know that I knew. And I left. But I know that if I'd have said, I'm leaving you because of the domestic violence, he would have made sure I'd have ended up with nothing. So
Yeah.
when it push come to shove, he decided to divorce me because I think he were hoping for a future with her. And he went to the solicitors, and then he come and knocked on. I were at my mum's at the time, waiting for the house I'd bought to go through, because we'd split the money. The house had been sold between us. He'd moved and I was ready for moving, so everything financially was done. And I wouldn't start divorce proceedings because I knew what would happen. And he came and knocked on the door and he said, I've been to the solicitor. And I goes, right. And he goes, I've no grounds to divorce you. And I says, I know you haven't. And he says, so what we're going to do about it? I says, I'll divorce you. And he walked away with that look on his face saying, well, go on then. But I went in and told him every incident. I wrote it all down and gave it to solicitor. So when his solicitor saw it, I daren't open the door to him because he come flying, screaming and shouting outside because he'd to sit there with the shame. And his solicitor said, this is what she said. And, it were awful. But that was one
And
day I could secure myself getting away safely.
how long ago was this, Deb?
2003.
And how long did it take you to recover? I mean, I think it always stays with you, doesn't it?
I would say recovery. That was the final thing when I told somebody, because they know him, and I said it was because of domestic violence. That was my final, like, there you go. If it gets back to you, I don't care. But over years, I mean, I've lived, within 10 minutes ride by car from him, but it's not bothered me. I've kept out of ways in another relationship now. I'm not. But it's like, what's he doing to her? But if she ever got in touch with me and said whatever, I'd tell her the truth, but to get over it,
Well,
I'm
let's
wary
hope
again.
that she is this one day,
I hope she does.
because men like him don't deserve to go on and have a happy
No, they
future
don't.
if that even happens, because I just think I'd be very, very shocked if she hasn't experienced some
Yeah,
form of abuse from him.
yeah.
I'd be shocked.
Well, I found
But
out not long after we had split up, his wife before me, he'd hit her so hard he'd knocked her teeth out, but she never reported it either. So I
bastard.
just think a leopard can't change his spots. But as to recovery,
No.
I'm just very wary of men. Very, very wary of men.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does it has a snowball effect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's like you want to
And I
know so
think
much about them, but can you be sure? I thought
yeah,
they were. you know.
I know, and like I'll advise all women that come to us for support. You
Mm.
know, we always advise that do a Clare's law,
Yeah.
but that's not always as simple as it should be. Doing
Mm.
Clare's law,
Yeah.
we've had it's come back too late sometimes.
Yeah.
And you'd think in this day and age there would be easier, quicker processes to get somebody's background. But
You would.
say for instance with you, because you'd not pressed charges, unlike with me, because I weren't strong enough at time. There were no way. I
Mm.
was absolutely convinced, and I knew that he would have killed me. He
Yeah.
would have
Yeah.
killed me, and I
Mm.
wasn't strong enough to do that at that time, to press
Yeah.
charges. Now
Yeah.
looking back, it's the biggest regret I've got in my life, not pressing
Mm.
charges.
Yeah. Because I
Because
said to my
like I'm
solicitor,
gonna,
even though I haven't got the evidence, because one thing I would say to everybody, if even if you don't feel strong enough to actually seek help from police or anything like that, take photographs, keep a
yeah,
diary, and also go to your doctor for them to document it. And then when you are strong enough, it's
absolutely,
there.
yeah,
And that's what I should have
absolutely,
done.
yeah, yeah, and me. But I didn't have a clue well, I'd got all on remembering what my name was most days, to be fair,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
level of control that you, you can't believe that you're even in that situation,
Yeah.
can you?
Yeah. If somebody
It's
turned
such
around
a
to me now who were listening to this who knew more about law than I did and said, "Oh, you can still do something," I would now. Even though it's
yeah,
so long ago, I
yeah,
would now. You know, I don't know if you can do
yeah,
historical, but I would because I just want him to face what he's done. I don't see, and I'm not being petty or anything like that. Why should he have a happy life like he's got with a lovely partner that on the outside, and I'm on my own, you know, and still, you know, if I see me, like I went to a fete over at summer and I said to my daughter, I'm going. I says, but I'll be on ex-husband look out. And then if I see him, I
yeah,
can move out of the way because we don't speak to each other. But I don't want to. It brings it all back when I see his face. You know.
yeah. Well, I'm not. Well, it will do.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. That triggers are there all the time, aren't
Yeah.
they? It can be a song, a smell, a
Yeah.
sound.
Hmm.
You know, and I think it takes time to learn how to process those triggers,
It
doesn't
does. Yeah.
it?
It
Because
does.
it just puts you. It just your mind just goes 1,000 miles an hour in
Mm.
less than a second, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
That level of fear, that feeling just comes back to the
Mm.
point where you're that overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, it's awful.
Yeah.
But I'd be very surprised if he's gone on to live a happy, healthy life from
Mm.
what you've told me.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, do they actually ever change?
I
I
don't
think
think
men
so.
like him probably not.
No.
No, it's just that maybe it's not. She's not found that strength yet to get
Mm.
away from him, and let's hope that she does report it if he
Yeah.
does do anything like that to her.
I hope so. I
And I
really hope
and
so.
I hope and I hope that the evil bastard's listening,
Mm.
because you know you're not the one that should be carrying any of this shame.
No.
It should be him.
Yeah.
Should be
Exactly.
him. And if I thought for 1 minute we'd get away with it, I'd tell you to say his name.
Mm.
Uh, but they're protected, aren't they, at every level?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. You've got to just keep under that sort of line, haven't you? So that you're protecting yourself as
yeah,
well as
yeah,
yourself in community and what have you. But I'm
yeah,
sure anybody who
yeah,
listening to this who knows me, who recognises my voice, would say, "I know who it is." You know, and
yeah. Well,
I hope they tell him.
that's yeah. Well, there you go. Um,
Mm.
but I think we should definitely do another one in
Hmm.
another podcast in another, probably, what do you think, about a month or so,
Yeah.
so we can
Okay.
maybe go further into it,
Mm.
and visually as well, because
Yeah.
I like to see what
Hmm.
people look like.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
it's always better and easier, I think, talking to a face rather than a screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that'd be good.
Right.
Just
Okay.
to be able to go into it a little bit more, I
Mm.
think, just
Yeah.
to see how. because I think the only way that we're ever going to expose or make any changes to anything is by us keep talking and
Mm-hmm.
women coming together and getting that strength, hopefully giving some of that strength to them to be able to
Mm-hmm.
empower them to be able to think, do you know what? This has been happening to me and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to live like this anymore
No, no. But
because there's
it's like
nothing, and I mean, there's nothing worth living a life of abuse like that.
there isn't.
Nothing.
No. Because it's the mental abuse as well, and I was worried for my child's safety because I made my child move out and move into my mum, and I lost quite. She was taking her A levels at the time, and I said you've got to go
Yeah,
because I was terrified it would hurt her. So it affected
yeah,
her. But
yeah,
not to extent.
yeah.
This is the first time I've told the story since my solicitor because of the shame I was trying to bury it. And you've got to
Well,
stand up and say this. This weren't
you
me.
have, you have, and I just want to say an absolutely massive thank you to you, Deb, for doing that, for
Yeah,
being
yeah.
so brave
Yeah, I just
to
want other
speak out
people to
about it.
recognise the signs and act on them before it does become mental abuse and physical abuse. Just to see them red flags and think, no, I'm not staying here.
Yeah, and I think we do need to build that sort of keep raising our voices more and
Mm,
more and more so that we can empower women to do that rather
yeah,
than them having to feel that shame because
yeah.
it's not their shame to carry.
No,
It's
it
as
isn't.
simple as that.
Mm,
Um, but I want to just say a massive thank you to you, Deb, and a thank you for being so brave for telling me your story.
it's
But we'll
okay.
definitely do it again in a couple of
Mm.
weeks.
Anything I can do to stop somebody else in that situation, I'll do it. I
Yeah,
just
and
don't want anybody
that's
having
the
a life
reason I
like
set
I
res
had.
yeah,
Mm.
that's the reason I set Resolute up in
Yeah,
first place for
yeah,
that same reason.
yeah,
But I think the only way we can ultimately make them changes is by getting more and more voices heard.
yeah. That's it.
So
Correct.
I will speak to you soon, and
Okay
we'll
then.
we'll rearrange we'll arrange to do another one if that's all
Lovely.
right.
That's absolutely fine. Okay
Take
then.
care, Deb.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.